So we just had some earth-shattering updates about Avengers Doomsday and Doctor Strange, and honestly, man, these are crazy. I'm losing my mind. This news is so wild that I legitimately did not believe it at first. I thought my chat was trolling me when they brought it up earlier on the live stream, and I kind of crashed out. I'm gonna be honest, I kind of crashed out about it, but it is real. I'm talking about Benedict Cumberbatch himself saying that he will not be in Avengers Doomsday. It's not often that I can use the phrase, this changes everything, like completely guilt-free, but in this example, I can absolutely do that. Like, this legitimately changes everything I thought I knew about Doomsday, and honestly, I'm having trouble figuring out what to do. So in this video, I want to explain why this is so crazy. Like, maybe you're a more casual Marvel viewer, and you're like, wait a minute, why is this such a big deal? Don't worry, I'll explain it in excruciating detail. I want to explain what the plan probably is now, because again, this changes things, and I think I even know how Marvel is now going to attempt to set up Doctor Doom. We then have to talk about how a lot of the rumors we thought were real for Doctor Strange are seemingly still on track to happen in Secret Wars, which is just, it's so weird. Like, what? But don't worry, I'll explain it. It's wild, man. Let's get into it. So first off, why is this even a big deal? Why did so many people like myself believe that Benedict Cumberbatch as Dr. Stephen Strange was all but guaranteed to not just be in the next Avengers movie, but to play a major role in it? Well, this basically comes down to two main things. Number one, comic books. In the Jonathan Hickman Secret Wars story, Dr. Stephen Strange and Dr. Doom have huge moments in that story, especially at the end, right before the actual Secret Wars event. I don't want to get lost in the sauce here. I'm going to try to keep this as TLDR as possible. But at this time in Marvel Comics, the entire multiverse was collapsing due to the incursions. Many different people from many different universes within the Marvel multiverse were trying to figure out what to do, how to stop the incursions, how to save the multiverse from completely collapsing. And the individual in Marvel Comics that finally figures out a solution to this and actually does stop the multiverse from collapsing is Doctor Doom. But the person that got second closest to that, the other person that's at the end of time fighting the Beyonders, and the only other character than Doctor Doom to survive the collapse of the multiverse and remember what the multiverse was like before Doctor Doom's battle world, is Stephen Strange. And I guess technically the Molecule Man, but I shouldn't have even said that because now I'm probably confusing you. The point is Stephen Strange is real important to that story. And so in the comic books before Secret Wars and during Secret Wars, Dr. Stephen Strange and Doctor Doom have a lot of screen time together. But it's not just the comic books that made us think this was real. Alex Perez of the Cosmic Circus, one of the best scoopers in the game, an insider with an incredible track record, has also been talking about Stephen Strange and his importance to the multiversal saga. Now, I want to be crystal clear here. When I initially heard this news about Dr. Stephen Strange, I was a little frustrated, and I was like, man, was Alex like wrong about this? Like, he's so good. He has such a good track record. Was he leading us astray? And I actually don't think that's what is happening. I think Marvel's plan is changing. I think a lot of what Alex is talking about will still happen, but just now in the Secret Wars film. But the point is, Alex dropped a ton of information and even teases that were about Doctor Strange being really important to understanding the end of the multiverse saga. This included teases of the very last issue of the New Avengers comic book, which literally saw Doctor Doom explaining his entire plan, how he defeated the Beyonders, why he's taken the whole multiverse into his hands and shaping Battleworld. Alex did a lot of reporting and a lot of teasing and a lot of hinting that Stephen Strange and Doctor Doom would share scenes together, and that just like in the comic books, their relationship together would be really key to understanding what is happening in Doomsday and in Secret Wars. And so there are a lot of nerds out there like me that follow this stuff incredibly closely. Like, we go after every little rumor and scoop, and over time we build a catalog of like who's really accurate and who's not. And when we're building our models or speculating on what we think these projects are going to be like, we tend to pull from the best sources that there are, and Alex is one of those. And so frankly, the entire Marvel fandom was thinking that Doctor Strange and Doctor Doom were going to be a big part of the Doomsday story. Now, the truth is, even before we knew a lot more about Doomsday, there were rumors that Doctor Strange 3 would adapt a lot of the time runs out elements. Now, when I say time runs out, I'm referencing that moment in the comic books that I've been talking about in this video the entire time. And rumors for Doctor Strange 3 were that Clea, who recruits Stephen even in the post-credit scene of Multiverse of Madness, would be taking Stephen Strange to a version of the Black Priest. This is another element of the Jonathan Hickman Time Runs Out comic. And so basically, without getting too lost in the sauce, the rumors that were out there were that Doctor Strange 3 was going to set up stuff potentially with Doctor Doom and Doctor Strange, and that story, just like in the comic books, would do a lot of heavy lifting to explain what was happening at the end of the multiverse. So a lot of people thought Doctor Strange 3 might be streamlined to come out before Doomsday. And by the way, this is also stuff that happened when there was still the idea of Kang. Obviously, Marvel Studios has gone away from Kang, but even when it was supposed to be the Kang Dynasty and then Secret Wars, there were a lot of rumors suggesting that Doctor Strange 3 would come out before Kang Dynasty and that it would set up elements of Time Runs Out, which would at that time involve Kang rather than Doctor Doom. Fast forward to today when Benedict Cumberbatch himself says that he's not going to be in Avengers 5. Here's a little segment from an article on Variety that discusses this. It reads, Downey will debut as the Marvel villain in 2026's Avengers Doomsday, which will also mark the return of the longtime MCU directors Joe and Anthony Russo. But Cumberbatch's Doctor Strange will not be facing off against Doom in that superhero tentpole. Is that a spoiler, he asks? It. According to Cumberbatch, plans for Doctor Strange to appear in the next Avengers movie were overhauled when Jonathan Majors got axed by Marvel after he was convicted of assaulting his ex-girlfriend. Majors' villain Kang was then going to be the new Avengers villain. That duty now falls to Downey, and Cumberbatch said Doctor Strange sitting out Doomsday has to do with the character not aligning with this part of the story. But Doctor Strange will be in a lot of 2027's Avengers Secret Wars and is quite central to where things might go, the actor teased. Okay, so now you know why all the fans were thinking that Doctor Strange 3 was either going to get his third movie before Doomsday, or when that seemed unlikely, we all just thought that story from Doctor Strange 3 would just be adapted into Doomsday. And now you've got the comments from Benedict Cumberbatch and him basically crushing our hopes and dreams. Now, there are a couple of different things that this could mean. I mean, number one, Benedict Cumberbatch could just be lying. Frankly, that seems unlikely given the specificity he used when talking about Secret Wars and how plans have changed. Like, it seems like he's authentically just talking off the cuff about not being in Doomsday. But it is technically possible that he's throwing us off the scent, that he's lying on purpose, or he's misunderstanding what he's actually doing. All of those things are possible. But I think he knows what's up, and I think he was telling us the truth. And so what that means is the idea to set up RDJ's Doctor Doom has just changed a lot from what it was going to be when it was Kang, and then maybe even some of the ideas they had when they first brought Downey on board. Because I still believe there was likely a chance that Doctor Strange 3 could have come out before Doomsday, but it just didn't happen. And maybe Marvel even considered taking that plot from Doctor Strange 3 and putting it into Doomsday. And for whatever reason, Steve McFeely and the Russo brothers just decided not to do that. They don't think that's the best way to set up the character for Doomsday. Now, this next part's speculation, but I wouldn't be surprised if this got confirmed. And I've already seen some other insiders and scoopers speculating that this is what is happening. It's probably the case that Marvel is just more directly using the Fantastic Four movie and Reed Richards and potentially post-credit scene or some stuff with RDJ's Doctor Doom in the Fantastic Four movie as like the new way to create a story thread going into Doomsday. So basically, if there was a version where Doctor Strange was going to be out there and perhaps encounter Doctor Doom and have some scenes that then would explain the motivation of Doom, it seems like now that will just happen via the Fantastic Four film or some big secret that is revealed of the Fantastic Four and Doctor Doom. On a small side note, one of the craziest rumors I've heard about Marvel and the Fantastic Four movie is that Reed Richards himself and his family will not actually be from the universe that they are in when we see that film. And I've even speculated that it's possible that Reed Richards and Doctor Doom actually come from an older version of the MCU. And in fact, they might come from a version of 616 that existed before the last multiversal war and then the remaking of the Sacred Timeline, which we already know He Who Remains did. And it's probably just the case that they want to have a lot of solo scenes with Robert Downey Jr. just explaining or exploring the multiverse in Doomsday. In the same way that Infinity War had flashbacks of Thanos, which really helped to fill in the gaps of his motivations and what made him into the person he was, we'll probably get that with Doctor Doom. Like, another absolutely insane rumor I've heard is that RDJ's Doctor Doom was somehow present in Iron Man 1, and we're going to see that moment from RDJ Doctor Doom's perspective in the Doomsday film. So that's like absolutely wild, right? So like, what if RDJ's Doctor Doom is like looking out at the sacred timeline and he sees this version of Tony Stark that looks just like him, or maybe it is actually him and He Who Remains turned Doctor Doom into Iron Man in his version of the sacred timeline? That's like a big theory that I have, but the main point is that it seems like the story of Doomsday will have perspective scenes with RDJ Doctor Doom, which are likely going to explain his view of the multiverse, his motivations for wanting to recreate the sacred timeline or end the multiverse or save everything, and ultimately why he's kind of a sympathetic character. That's a big established rumor, that RDJ's Doctor Doom will be a sympathetic villain. A lot of insiders have said we will understand the motivation for RDJ's Doctor Doom even more clearly than we understand the motivation for Thanos. But now let's talk about Doctor Strange in Secret Wars, right? Because as I said at the front of this video, like, a lot of the stuff that Alex Perez has been teasing seemingly will still happen. I mean, Benedict himself says he has a huge role to play in Secret Wars, and he's sort of teasing up that like he's a really important part of where that's all going. And now I want to look at this here. This was just shared out by Alex Perez, who I mentioned earlier on in this video. And he says here, shout out to a member of the Discord for condensing what I've said about Strange and his role in the saga over my last year in the Q&A. So let's read through some of the stuff. I think it'll actually help us to make sense of what's going on. So here's something Alex said. He said, a lot of the ideas they had for it certainly looked like could work for a third Doctor Strange movie. And what made it work was that it would justify Strange's absence in Avengers 5 before returning to Secret Wars. Now I'm not so sure. Strange was poised to have one of the biggest roles in the multiverse saga against Kang, and they had some really good story ideas for the character, one of which raised the question as to whether or not Strange was actually a hero in the grand scheme of the multiverse. His words say one thing, but his actions in the multiverse say otherwise. The more help he wants to do, the more damage he does to the fabric of reality. Benedict Cumberbatch as Dr. Stephen Strange with Robert Downey Jr., Victor Von Doom will shatter universes. This will feature some of the most important sequences in the multiverse saga. Another thing Alex said was, I'm hearing very exciting things regarding Doctor Strange's story leading into Secret Wars. I wrote an article a while back about Doctor Strange versus Kang in the multiverse saga, where I talked about Stephen Strange's role and how essentially he's been portrayed in most of his alternate iterations as the biggest threat to the multiverse, given how Strange has been the one who's ultimately causing incursions throughout various universes. That storyline is still being explored here, but now instead of having Kang, you have RDJ's Doctor Doom opposite Benedict Cumberbatch's Doctor Strange. Just think about the weight of this moment. Dr. Stephen Strange, a character we have seen be a force for good time and time again, being forced to face the reality that he is being dubbed the greatest threat in the multiverse, with the evidence to prove it, because nearly every other version of himself has allowed their ego to make bad decisions costing their reality. Opposite him, you have Doctor Doom, one of Marvel's most iconic villains, an ambitious, egotistical antagonist who is trying to find the secrets of the multiverse and the reason behind its decay to prevent the death of the multiverse from happening. Could Strange be easily manipulated by Doom into doing his bidding? After all, they're both instrumental in the Time Runs Out and Secret Wars storylines in the comics. Here's another thing Alex said. Another pairing I will find interesting is what Doctor Strange and Clea are doing in the Dark Dimension. I've been investigating this for a while, and what I'm curious in seeing is the reaction of the heroes of 616 will have to when we see Strange next, because by all accounts and purposes, Stephen Strange has been gone for 2 whole years by the time we reach Doomsday, and he's left the Sanctum unguarded as well. And he certainly didn't tell Wong where he was going. So that's going to be a reunion I'm very much looking forward to seeing. And then here, Alex says it's Doom. It's always been Doom. But the theme that I think will resonate here is that in a multiverse of endless possibilities, anything is possible and nothing is set in stone. Just because something happens consistently in every universe, it doesn't mean that it's bound to happen in yours. Doomsday we'll focus on who exactly is to blame for the current state of the multiverse. Was it Kang? Was it his variant? Was it someone else? What I'm hearing is that they are going to try to shift the blame on Doctor Strange. And it's a motif that's been building up for a while now. I've explained before in my previous articles and Q's and A's, but the idea is to make Strange the common denominator when it comes to incursions. And a good part of these films is Strange trying to reject that notion that all Stranges are meant to doom the universe by making him the one who chooses to save it. Okay, so that's a lot, and there's even more that Alex has said. Like, this isn't all of it, and I know that because I've read a lot of these reports. Alex has said other things too, but I do think it's interesting that when you look at a lot of what Alex is saying, he's talking about plans that they had with Kang. He's talking about ideas that they want to do with like Doom and Steven, shattering universes and scenes between them being some of the most important in the multiverse. And I think at the end of the day, it is just the case that these ideas are not going to be in Doctor Strange 3. They're not going to be in Doomsday, but instead they will be in Avengers Secret Wars. Now that changes my perception of Secret Wars quite a bit, because I thought Secret Wars would be a movie in which you have just all these crazy characters, like so much multiversal fun and like heroes versus the villains. I thought Doomsday would be very story heavy on Doom, his motivations, what he's actually trying to accomplish. And then I thought Secret Wars would be mostly fighting with like them trying to stop God Emperor Doom, you know, trying to face this impossible task, and then all the Avengers finally coming together, figuring out a way to beat Doom and reset the timeline back into what it was. And I suppose that's still possible, but it just seems like context and stuff with Stephen Strange and Doctor Doom will be explored in the Secret Wars film. And the more I've thought about this and reread some of the comments that Alex has made, I wonder if when we see Doctor Strange next in Secret Wars, if he will already be working with Doctor Doom, and then maybe we get some flashbacks to the moments that they shared together secretly that ended up leading to Doom discovering the truth about the multiverse and then taking it over. But the main thing to keep in mind is that it still seems like a lot of Doctor Strange stuff with Doctor Doom is going to happen. I think that's cool, and I think it makes sense considering the comics. It's just a head scratcher as to why it's not going to be in Doomsday, right? Like, I'm just kind of confused about that. And of course, I'll follow up on any updates or leaks that come out about this because I'm fascinated in it. Let me know your thoughts about this whole situation in the comment section below. And as I always say, I hope you are having an awesome and a nerdy day, and I'll see you in the next video.